Assalamualaikum. Today we're going to present about law of contract. We are from DLF. The members that will participate in this presentation is me, amirina rasyada binti mohamad zaki. Second, nurul ziana izzatie binti mohamad zamberi. Third, nurul and syafikah binti saubari. And lastly, nurul hanan binti azman. This slide is prepared for Sir Adam Muhammad Ihsan Muhammad Shani. So the first one is consideration. What is consideration? Consideration is fall under Section 2D Contract Act 1950, which is when at the desire of the promiser, the promised or any other person has done or abstained from doing, or does or abstains from doing or promised to do or to abstain from doing something. Such act or abstinence or promise is called consideration for the promise. And for this presentation, we are going to discuss based on case usefully and madam useful. Our explanation going to follow ILC technique, which is issue, law, consideration, and conclusion. My part to explain in this presentation is issue. In this situation, Madam Useful offered Usli 1,000 ringgit and a single-story terrace house, and as a return, Usli needs to turn back to Ipoh and further study at KOLEJ PROFESIONAL Mara Ipoh. The issue is whether consideration exists in order to form a valid contract between Madam Useful and Usli. So to be more clear about this, let's continue with our next presenter.
Hi, my name is Ziana Izzatie binti Mohamad Zamberi. I'm going to explain about consideration in terms of law. In the scenario, there are relevant section, which is Section 2D Contract Act 1915. When at the desire of the promiser, the promise or any other person has done or abstained from doing something such as act, abstinence, or promise is called a consideration for the promise. Consideration is the price at which one party pay to purchase the other's pledge or act. It may be behaving, abstinent, or committing to carry out a future act or abstinence. So for the relevant case for this situation is Carlyle versus Carbolic Smoke Bowl, which in this case, the defendants advertise the promise of a reward for person who will use their smoke bowl in a certain manner. When Miss Carlyle performed the condition as set out in the advertisement, there is consideration from Miss Carlyle. So there is consideration between Madam Useful and her son Useless. Madam Useful offer her son RM1,000 and a single-story terrace house, and as a return, Useless need to return back to Ipoh and further his study at KPM Ipoh. So there's two-way communication, and whenever Useless agree with the offer by his mother, there's consideration happen. Agreement made with consideration is valid. Next, Hanan will explain.
Yes, Ami, can you the slide? Okay, so I'm Hanan and going for the third one, which is application. Okay, firstly, there is two consideration, which is consideration as promiser. Madam which offer M1,000 single-story terrace house towards his son Useless, and the and consideration as promisee, which is useless, agreed to return to Ipoh and further his study in accountancy at KPM Ipoh. So the consideration can be considered as executory consideration because at the time of the agreement, neither promise has been fulfilled and only become executed when both parties have fulfilled their responsibilities. So, according to Section 10.1, agreement between useless and Madam Useful can be considered as a valid contract as it was made for a lawful consideration with a lawful object, which in this case, the consideration are 1,000 ringgit and the single story terrace house as well as useless promised to return back to Ipoh and further his study at College Professional Mara Ipoh. So, those considerations were not declared void.
Okay, so my name is Nurul and Syafikah saubari. I will talk about the conclusion. So, in conclusion, consideration exists in the contract where the promise of both parties that is good consists of 1,000 ringgit as useless monthly expenses and the single story terrace house as well as the useless promise to return and further study at KPM Mara Ipoh at KPM Ipoh among the valid consideration.
Okay, so next, now we move to the intention to create legal relation. First of all is issue. So the general rule for issue. Agreement itself does not create a binding contract. It must be intended to be legally enforceable. There must be a presence or express or a presence of express or implied intention. So the issue in the case of Madam Useful and her son Useless is whether intention to create legal relation exists in order to form a valid contract between Madam Useful and Useless. So the question is or not. So let's move to the next presenter for further information.
For the law, the relevant section for this situation is Section 2D, Contracts Act 1950, which is silent on the intention to create legal action, which is it simply means that the parties to the agreement are ready to face any implications if they fail to perform the terms under the contract. There are two presumptions on the existence of intention to create litigation that can be concluded from the case laws is social, domestic and family agreement and business negotiation. Madam Useful and Useless case fall under presumption of domestic because it is agreement without intention to create litigation, which means the agreement are not intended to be legally enforceable. The promise will not be subjected to legal action because there is no valid contract between Madam Useful and Useless. So the second case is Balfour versus Balfour, which is Madam Useful and Useless doesn't make any writing comment. So let's move to the next application.
For application, How it related to the case of Madam Useful and Usli, both of the case did not have a valid contract to show that make an agreement. The contract become invalid once Madam Useful take back all of her promises, which is 1,000 ringgit monthly as her expenses and a single house, and the reason why he cannot take legal action towards his mom because the promise they made by both of them only by oral. So there is no proof to show both of them had made an agreement. In order to take legal action, Useless must make a writing contract with his mom and signed by both parties. By that, the contract can be declared as a valid contract. So we move to the next presenter.
So, from all the explanation, we can conclude that intention to create relation can be considered as missing in the contract as social, domestic, and family agreement are not intended to be binding. Therefore, there is no intention to create legal relation. So, in court's discretion, the contract between Madam Useful and Useless can be declared as void as one element to form a valid contract was not fulfilled. There is no writing contract between both parties made Useless cannot take legal action towards his mother, Madam Useful. So, that's all from us. Thank you.
Thank you.